Geometry Dash is a game where players are constantly trying to challenge themselves and others and push the limits of what can be done. Many top players have come and gone over the years, looking to be one of the few who can take difficulty to the next level. The levels and players that manage to stand alone at the top etch themselves into the mind of a community to never be forgotten. Sonic Wave is one of those levels that has a story unlike anything else in the game's decade-long history. To tell you the story of Sonic Wave, we first have to go all the way back to 2015 with the release of Geometry Dash's 1.9 update, and more importantly, the Steam port of the game. With players no longer being locked to their phones and the limitations that came with them, the game would be in prime position for players to go far beyond what was previously deemed possible. One level that stood above many of the ones in existence at the time was Cataclysm. Filled with tight wave sections and ship corridors, it seemed almost completely unapproachable to players. Its creator G-Boy claimed to have had over 80,000 attempts on the level, but it would quickly be deemed an illegitimately verified level. That came as a surprise to no one either, as it seemed like something far beyond the scope of players' abilities. Nobody knew if it could actually be done, but there were a few players who were willing to give it their all to find out. Cyclic was one of those players who vied to push the limits of the game. A veteran of the GD forums who switched over from mobile when the update released, he would take his existing skill and try to go for the hardest challenges the game had seen at this point. But Cyclic wouldn't be the only one to eye this level. Another one of the players in the race to defeat Cataclysm was Riot. Riot was another player who switched over to PC and started running through regular demon levels. These two players would be integral to the game and the playing community. Cyclic and Riot would both grind the level for days, constantly setting new bests until on the 2nd of May 2015, there was a winner. Cyclic had defeated Riot and become the first to beat an Extreme Demon. There was still an opportunity for Riot to surpass Cyclic though. Cataclysm was only considered the second hardest level behind the seemingly impossible Ice Carbon Diablo X. ICDX was a remnant of Update 1.6 that was hack verified and uploaded to the servers by Road Bows. It took the ship game mode to what seemed like its limits at the time. Riot's main noteworthy skill was the ship however, and after 2 weeks of grinding he was able to beat it. Before he could celebrate though, it was determined that Cataclysm actually was the harder of the two levels. Once again, Cyclic had trumped Riot and stayed in the position of being the game's best player. Riot's third attempt to beat Cyclic was a different story, however. He would round up 13 creators to make a spiritual successor to Cataclysm aptly called Bloodbath. Bloodbath took the straight flying of ICDX and the look and feel of Cataclysm and put it on steroids. It was far harder than anything that had ever been attempted. Even other top players like Zobros didn't believe it could be beaten. With months of streaming and perseverance, Riot was able to accomplish the feat. This would oust Cyclic from having the hardest level and send him back to the drawing board. In order to regain his notoriety as the best player, there was only one thing Cyclic could do. He had to build his own level and use it to dethrone Bloodbath. Thus he began work on his new hard level, Sonic Wave. Taking direct inspiration from the widely known 9 Circles by Zobros, Sonic Wave was a light blue spin-off of the level that was far harder than the other spin-offs and directly on par with Bloodbath. Instead of taking the ship to its limits like Riot had done, Cyclic would opt for the wave. After creating Sonic Wave, Cyclic would get right to work on the verification of it. Seemingly out of nowhere, he would upload a verification video for it, but there was something wrong with it. It would be openly uploaded with a cut replay of 2 separate runs merged together because he claimed it had been beaten off recording. Even with that admission, there was no concrete proof the level had actually been beaten, and that caused it to not get rated Demon. In Geometry Dash, your level has to be manually approved by the game's developer RobTop in order to be recognized as the Demon difficulty. This prevented it from being listed as one of the hardest levels on the Demon list. Cyclic didn't want to let what he had worked for get ruined by this, and he would take the opportunity to revamp the entire level with a new darker color scheme and many buffs to guarantee that it completely outdoes Bloodbath. This new version of the level was incomprehensibly difficult for the time. On today's Demon List website, Sonic Wave is nearly 200 spots higher than Bloodbath. That didn't faze Cyclic, who was used to the pressure of doing things people assumed he couldn't, and he would quickly make progress, getting 31% and 74%. This level that was leaps and bounds past what had been done before was seemingly doable. The game was about to take its largest difficulty leap ever. Cyclic would keep pushing forward, and on July 25th, 2015, he had done it. A level that shouldn't have even been possible was verified and without a disclosed cut in the replay. This time the level was rated and Cyclic was once again the winner. He had demonstrated incomprehensible skill nobody could have foreseen, or so we thought. There was something off about everything with the level. How did Cyclic just beat something that nobody else in the community could even touch? Especially with the fishy circumstances surrounding the easier version of the level. Even weirder than that, Cyclic would end up replacing the level with a copy of Back on Track before it would end up being unrated. What on earth had happened with the supposed hardest demon in the game? The mysteries surrounding the level would end up getting closure in March of 2016 when Cyclic would confess to Riot that he hacked everything he did in the game, including both versions of Sonic Wave.
Dude, I really don't feel like this is real. There's no fucking way he actually beat.
There's no way.
He has to be just doing this to fuck himself. I don't believe that this is actually real. He said he hacked or cut them all, and that the streams he made.
Let's watch them back.
Were all pre-recorded. No, it cannot be real. I've been competing with a hacker the whole time.
The first version had been released with a tool called Verify Hack that allowed you to post a level without having to beat it, with the cut replay posted in its place. And the harder version had been beaten with speed hacks used to slow down the game to make it easier. To say this was a massive blow to the community was an understatement. Cyclic was revered throughout his run for being the best player, and was somebody players worldwide looked up to, when it turned out that was all a lie. And it was even more shocking that Riot had been able to keep up with a player who wasn't competing fairly. All the players out there who aspired to be the best had been competing with a cheater the entire time. After Cyclic confessed to what he had done, he deleted his YouTube channel and left the community in shame. Cyclic may have left, but Sonic Wave never left the mind of the community, and people would start to pick up where he left off to try and do the level. Mafui would be the first of the players to give it a go. Despite his hardest completion not even being an extreme demon, he had been playing it since before Cyclic confessed, and accumulated some small runs like 24% and 64 to 100. He would keep playing the level for a month straight of grinding until he had managed to reach 72% on the level. Somebody may have been about to prove that Sonic Wave was possible. He even got so confident that he buffed the ending and swapped out Cyclic's name with his own. Mafui wouldn't be alone in his pursuit to verify it though. Riot was also grinding the crown jewel of his former rival's false achievements. He would get his own 64 to 100 run and 28 to 82. Mafui would one-up himself with a 75% run, but his next progress would change everything about the level, the race, and its entire perception in the community. On March 25th, 2016, Mafui was on a really good run. He had passed the first and second waves and was now deep into the third. All that remained was to pass the ending spam that he had altered in his version.
No! 98!
He was only a few clicks away when the very same buff he put on the level would come back to haunt him in the form of a 98% death. This fail was monumental as the number one demon at the time was still Bloodbath, meaning if Mafui had managed to pull it off, he would have raised the difficulty bar for the game immensely. He was so close to becoming one of the greatest players the game had ever seen, and yet it slipped away at the last possible second. Many believe this fail is the biggest choke the game has ever seen to this day. The end of the Sonic Wave race was so tantalizingly close, but had been ripped away from both Mafui and the community. Riot and Mafui would partner with some of the game's best creators to both get their own versions of the level, with Riot and Viprin creating Sonic Wave Infinity, and Mafui, Funny Game, and Serpunge making Sonic Wave Rebirth. These would start a trend of remaking Sonic Wave that still continues into the present day. Tosh Deluxe also released his own remake with Rustam called Sonic Wave Deluxe, but it wasn't the same difficulty as the original level, and we also have reason to suspect it may have been done illegitimately after he was proven to have hacked Devil Vortex. Riot would regain some momentum with a 39-100 run on his new version of the level. He would later get 81% on it, inching closer and closer to Mafui. Riot also got 76% on the original cyclic version of the level. With Mafui slowing down, the momentum of the race had shifted to him. He kept at the level and he would end up on his own run to the ending. A few seconds were left to decide whether he would be able to do it or join Mafui with an agonizing choke. He too would fall victim to the very chokeable end of the level with a devastating 96% fail. Seconds away from accomplishing what he had set out to do, he made an unfortunate mistake. Both of the biggest participants in the race had fully demonstrated they could do it, and it only seemed like a matter of when. Unbeknownst to everyone, a third major figure would join in on the race. This is Sunix. Sunix was a player who'd beaten the hardest levels available at the time, like Bloodbath, with ease. He even beat variants of Bloodbath with color changes for fun to further emphasize his rising skill. He was in search of a new challenge to set his sights on and landed on Sonic Wave. He quickly started catching up to Mafui and Riot, reaching 88%. Sunix would keep playing the level, and a mere 6 days later he would end up getting to the end of the level. It was now or never. Could he close out the 2-year-long journey to finally overcome this level, or choke the run like those before him and fade away? Despite the nerves one must get trying to be the first to ever do something of this magnitude on stream, Sunix pulled through. At that moment, he and everyone in his stream witnessed the end of a 2-year-long journey that took countless attempts and hours of playing from all that had participated. Sunix's replay currently sits at 3.5 million views on YouTube, and the copy of the level on his account got 21.5 million downloads. It was a monumental event for the community to finally overcome the remnants of Cyclic's past. Sonic Wave retained its spot at number 1 on the demon list for a very long time. It was not without competition though. The first level that actively competed with it was Riot's mega collab Yatagarasu that had been verified by Trusta within a week of Sonic Wave. Yet again, the hardest demon position was being contested with a Riot level and a Cyclic level. Initial assumptions pointed to Yata being the one to hold the throne, but when players started comparing the two, it ended up becoming clear that Sonic Wave was harder. The next player to take a crack at dethroning Sonic Wave was the rising player Boldstep with his verification of Erebus by Ilrel and Rustam. The level had very different gameplay to any of the other top levels at the time, and that led people to initially believe it should be number 1. But like with Yata, time would prove that it was a jump to conclusions to put it over Sonic Wave, and the levels would end up getting swapped. These three would stand as the top 3 for months and months and would end up being grouped together and referred to as the RGB by the community based on their color schemes. Stalemate, Redux, and Digital Descent would follow, but both barely held onto the number 1 spot for any time, before being lowered down below the RGB trio as players attempted them and realized they were definitely easier. It almost seemed like nothing was ever going to permanently displace Sonic Wave from the top spot. A year had passed and anything that merely looked in the direction of Sonic Wave was sent tumbling downwards. Things would change though. Smokes and Gearon, old top players from 1.9, had a level up their sleeve. The last part of their long-running Plasma Pulse series was just released after being verified by Smokes. He didn't say how hard it was in his video description, but when players started attempting it after its raid on December 27th of 2017, it was clear the level was incredibly difficult. At first it would conservatively be placed at the number 2 spot, but as more difficulty opinions came in, it was clear what must be done. Plasma Pulse Finale got raised up above Sonic Wave, and unlike the levels before, it would not end up being moved below, ending its 1-year run as the hardest legitimately beaten level in the game. Once one level was able to surpass its difficulty, the floodgates seemingly opened with more levels, like Gamma, Spatial Rend, and Bloodlust pouring out and pushing it further and further down the list. Riot would also end up getting his closure with Sonic Wave in 2020 after promising to beat it if his YouTube channel was reinstated. In the present day, it's no longer within the top 150 hardest levels after it was pushed out by the placement of Instinct by Crazyman50 Real. Cyclic himself came back to announce the change and would say, "Sonic Wave was once thought impossible, but now it's off the list. This level was made with my thoughts that this would be the hardest level ever that human can ever beat. It's amazing how much skilled players got in this game and kept pushing beyond their limits. Now it's time to let this old level go and fill the list with more challenging levels for players. Although it may no longer be the hardest thing in the game, it's still present in the journeys of many players trying to reach the top today as a stepping stone." Sonic Wave had been displaced from the top of the list, but that didn't stop anybody from trying to continue its legacy. Remember Riot's version, Sonic Wave Infinity? Well, it would end up getting super buffed to be far harder than the original, redecorated by the AP team, and passed from verifier to verifier until it reached the hands of Zanny. He would embark on his own months-long journey as the doubted underdog, and even died on the last spam of the level just like Mifui did on the original version of Sonic Wave years before him. The difference here is that Zanny would actually stick it through and would verify Sonic Wave Infinity as a new top 3 demon, in an era of the game where Sonic Wave had fallen out of the top 40. SWI is still in the top 30 on the list to this day and continues to keep Sonic Wave alive for the highest level players to challenge themselves with. Mifui's Sonic Wave Rebirth would end up being passed off to Moosh by Serpunge, after Mifui sold his Geometry Dash account and the level on eBay, while Serpunge held onto a copy of it the entire time, and kept the rights to it as its original creator, and it was verified as a slight rebalance of the original level being nearly identical in difficulty. Metalface221 verified the old light blue Sonic Wave that was originally released with the cut replay, and Sunix beat the version of Sonic Wave that Mifui got his 98% fail on with the ending buff. Sonic Wave also received a sequel called Cosmic Cyclone that had gameplay built by Cyclic, Riot, and Sunix, the main 3 figures of Sonic Wave's history. It would also undergo decoration from the AP team and would end up getting verified by Doshi as a main list Extreme Demon. That was a few rungs above its predecessor in difficulty while still being well received as a fun level by most who attempted it. Even if the original level has been surpassed, it still lives on in its remakes and sequels, and as a rung for new up-and-coming players to climb on their way to the top.